G'day and a fine howdy hey guys. This is the second time I've had to start this video because there was either a possum or a rat that ran above right when I started recording, and it was really fucking loud and it just ruined my intro and made me feel sad. So that's a great beginning to this video. Also, if you're hearing a weird like humming noise, I don't know what it is. I searched all over my room. I couldn't figure it out. I've turned off all the lights, turned off my laptop, turned off all my tech, turned off the PowerPoints. My only guess is it is the, like, something that's in the wall or outside of my wall, like the hot water system or something. I don't know what it is, but it's something and it's humming. So yeah. So for today's story time, I'd like to talk about my dropout. Well, one of the many reasons that I dropped out. I have many reasons, as you do, because to drop out, my dad said, create a list of pros and cons as to why you should stay in school or leave. And of course the cons to school outweighed the pros to school, so I was like, okay, fuck, bye. But yeah, so it all started not all started, I mean it starts all the way from my early education because but I'm going to start the story in year 8. So I was 14 years old in high school, because that's the education system here. So I was 14 and I started feeling ill. Now, as a backup for the story, when I was younger I did have a lot of stomach pains. Some were a mix of, "Mummy, I don't feel so well. Can I stay home today and play Minecraft?" or some stupid shit like that, because I just don't want to go to school today. I think we have math or something. It wasn't like that some of the time. Some of them were because I got stomach pains because I get stressed. And, I mean, I've solved getting stomach pains when I'm stressed now. I just end up crying or vomiting. So that's character progression, am I right? But yeah. That became depressing real quick. But I started getting these stomach pains because I was, getting anxiety. I didn't know what the fuck was happening. I thought there was something physically wrong with me, so I had to stay home a lot of the time. To go to doctors and stuff. At one stage my mum thought I had POTS, that's P-O-T, I think that's like a energy thing, I can't remember, but it's like an energy thing, and she thought it was energy related because I just wanted to stay in bed all day, let alone, it was most likely depression that kept me wanting to stay in bed, and then the anxiety on top of that, which is fun. I actually thought there was something physically wrong with me, but no, there was something mentally wrong with me. So that's always fun. You gotta love those mental disorders. Am I right? But I found out after the year had ended by my dad, because my dad's very analytical and he's very stay in school, kid. I dropped out just like you the moment I could, and look where I am, fat and driving a truck. It's okay, my dad said that once, so I'm allowed to say it, technically. Plus it's my dad, I'm allowed to make fun. He makes some fun of me sometimes too, so it's equal playing field. So by the end of the year, I found out, because of all my sick days in year 8, I only attended 48% of school, to which I agree to a certain extent, because it was here and there, and take days off here and there, and the norm for a teenager, half of it thinking there's actually physically something wrong with me, and me, then the other half, abusing the fact that I think there's something physically wrong with me, and going, hey, I know we have math today, let's skip that day. But yeah, so then next year came, so now I'm 15 years old in year 9, and this is where a lot of my friends don't realize what happened. I tend to tell stories to them of, what happened when I was year 9. The truth comes out. And I'm talking about the students from the blue uniform schools. That's the second high school I attended. The story that I'm talking about from year 8 to year 9 is red uniform. Then from year 10 onwards is blue uniform. And the reason why I didn't tell them was because, well, one, my family was like, the less kids know at the other school, the better, because, you don't want to be bullied, to which I 100% agree with, and I don't regret. But, it's going to be funny when people find out and I'm going to get messages on Facebook and Discord. That's going to be the best part of it all. But basically, year 9, I ended up getting sick, and it just kept getting worse and worse and worse, because I'm guessing I wasn't eating right, and because I wasn't eating right, I was losing energy. I was struggling to wake up. I was struggling to move. I was getting stomach pains due to my anxiety. It was just shit. Every day was a struggle, and I'm guessing my mental health had something to do with my physical health, causing it to plummet so poorly, because I have no other answer for what was happening. Like, I still don't know what the fuck was wrong with me, so I just say, I was sick, because I honestly don't know what it was. But, I was sick, and I only attended a week in term 1 and a day in term 2, and that was my year 9 experience. As a 15-year-old, I basically didn't complete year 9. I had basically just ran it up to 0 attendance, because I hardly attended that year. So 6 months into year 9 goes by, and I moved to my father's. I moved to my dad's. That's better. And because he's an interstate truck driver, I had to travel Australia. Yeah. Now the story's probably making sense to my friends, because, you spent half a year traveling Australia, but you were still in high school? Funny how, none of them probably caught on to that until now. I've been telling them stories of how I travelled Australia for half a year, but, nobody ever, questioned me. Wait, you're in school, how have you, travelled for half a year, and you're level with us? Well, here's the juicy part. So, half a year into year 9, I moved to my dad's, and my school is well, you haven't got the attendance to continue this year level. There's no way you will pass to go into year 10 next year. So you're going to have to redo year 9, which is fine, that's dandy. I don't really care. But because I moved to my dad and he lived an hour away from the current high school I was at the time, he was like, well, there's no point of you staying at this high school since it's so far away. And he told me, you can easily move to a new high school and just have a fresh start, because, people from your old high school, they'll be like, oh, where were you for most of the year? Haha, you got kept down, blah, blah, bullying. Which he had a point. He had a very big point. Not only would it be beneficial distance-wise, but I had a school that was within walking distance, so it was convenient. It saved me having to be on the train for 3 hours every fucking morning and every fucking afternoon, which that would have been the case. It's a 3-hour train ride and an hour's drive, so I'd rather take the 25-minute-ish walk. But basically, we enrolled after the second half of the year travelling Australia. Talked about my future at that school, I just remember so much of that experience, I guess. And so basically we're sitting down interviewing the vice principal, or whoever the fuck it was. I don't know, it was some weird guy. I still don't even know his friggin' name, even though I left school last year. That's right, this year I should have been in year 12. Fun fact. But so we're talking to the guy, and he was like, well, this art course you want to do, because you weren't here, the previous year to go on it, because it was a Victorian Certificate of Education, course at the school or class, whatever you want to call it. I call it a course. But he was like, you can't take it because you weren't here the previous year, which is fine. So he said, okay, so you're going to have to do you know, art, meaning and making instead of studio art. So I was like, oh, well, I mean, studio art sounds like the better pick, but sure, I'll take art, meaning and making. Let's paint Van Gogh for the next 12 months. But, yeah, fine, yeah. Fruit in a bowl. You can tell how much I love that class, even though I'm an art student. But I then remember my dad requesting that, you know, I redo year 9 at that school, which is, yeah, that's fair. I 100% understand that, because, you know, I missed out on year 9. I only attended a week in term semester. Fuck me, I can't speak. I only did a week in term 1 and a day in term 2, so I basically had a 0 attendance. Probably 1% attendance. I don't know what the attendance rate is, but basically the vice principal was all like, oh, no, she has to be with her age group, we'll bump her up to year 10. And I was like, oh. To me, I was like, hell yeah, I don't have to redo year 9. It's then year 10, and then I get to choose whether I do math or not. I really hated math. So I was like, hell yeah, I want to do year 10. And my parents tried to fight it. They're like, no, put her with, you know, her group. You know, I was basically forced to go into year 10 with technically semi-year 8 knowledge, which made my education very risky, I guess you could say. I went into a class that had an assistant, but that assistant was never there because other students were asking for help, even though the assistant was meant to be there for me. I actually, fun fact, in math, because I was so far behind, I wasn't required to get the year 10 math book. I got away with not having the math book, which sucked, because then when the teacher was like, okay, get your math books out, kids, and he was instructing them what to do, he'd then forget that I don't have the math book, I was told not to get it, therefore I can't do what everyone else was doing. And he was like, oh, well, I don't know what I should be teaching you. And I was like, well, what the fuck? Like, and I wasn't the only one who was struggling. There was 2 others, a girl and a guy. But, you know, I think they were faking, because, like, I'd explained some basic shit to one of them, and, like, I don't mean to be that type of person, like, judgmental and all that, but I explained the most basic math to these kids, and they were struggling. And they were, like, 15, 16 years old, and it was basic math. Like, I don't mean to judge, and the next thing I say, like, further in this video is like, oh, she's judgy, you know, you're a hypocrite, but, like, it was basic counting. Like, there was one where I told one of them, you know, oh, this part's easy, so you go look at this part, and you count up by 3, and she was like, I don't understand. It's like, you count up by 3, can you count? She's like, yeah, and I'm like, okay, 1, 2, 3, you count up by 3. She's like, I still don't get it. It's like, you just count. Here's the answer. Just count. Like, it was stupid shit like that. And then the other kid just played on video games on his laptop and said that the laptop light was for his diabetes or something. I don't fucking know. That kid was weird. But so I was, you know, doing well, I guess, for the situation I was in, and I was struggling really poorly. I think that year all my grades plummeted, even my art grade, because, well, I'll be honest, I didn't really give a shit about that art class, and that teacher didn't like me anyway, but but I was really badly struggling, and unfortunately, you know, shit happens. So end of year comes, and, you know, I'm struggling, you know, that's fucking normal, I guess. And, you know, my results come in, parents like, you've done shit this year, and I'm like, well, what the fuck do you expect? You know, I go into year 10 with semi-year 8 knowledge, and they're like, well, okay, sure, we'll accept that, I guess. My family was strict, so I was like, eh. And, so, about that time, I started getting my license. I got my learner's permit, because I didn't get it at first at, I think, I got it in July of 2016 because I didn't get it when I was 16 because I decided to get my marine license instead. Priorities number one. And I only got it because I saw my friend was, talking about how she got her L's on Facebook, and I was like, oh, I'm missing out. My friends are going to get all their car licenses before me. To which, I got it all before them. But, so I got my learners, and I remember one day I was driving home, and my dad made sure to pick out a car, an automatic, after a while. I think it was... Actually, no, I'm lying. Okay, so about a couple months later, so now I'm in year 11, I'm doing the Victorian Certificate of Education. It's my first year of that. So now I'm in year 11, and I'm driving... I remember it was a 97 model Statesman. It was basically forgotten royalty. Very few people will know what I'm talking about if you're, savvy with cars. But it was a Statesman 1997 model. It was perfect. It had furry seats. I loved it. It had electric windows. My current car doesn't have electric windows. You have to wind that shit up. But it's a Holden, so it's the same brand, so I have to accept it, right? But basically, my dad made sure to pick out an automatic car after me showing so much dislike to the manual Kia Rio, which I memed about it in one of my older videos. But the Kia Rio, it's hard to explain if you haven't driven a manual bit before, but you got, your accelerator pedal, your brake pedal, and if you're in a manual, you have your clutch. The clutch, when you push down, you can feel it, okay? So when you're changing gears, you can feel, how far to pull back, because when you're pulling back, it's hard to explain if you don't know cars, but, when you pull back, you get a feel, so that way you don't stall it, because you can stall it if you can't feel, when you're going from changing gears to remaining in gear. I don't know how to fucking explain it, but yeah, sure, we'll go along with that. And this Kia had no feel. I couldn't tell whether I was about to stall it or not, so suddenly I'd be changing gear and then suddenly stall, and I'd be like, what the fuck? Like, I've driven, my instructor's manual, and I was perfectly fine, but then this Kia Rio shows up, like, hey, what's up? I bet you were expecting to be able to feel when you're changing the gears and not about to stall your car. Well, guess what? I have news for you, buddy. You have no idea. And never mind the fact that whenever sometimes you change a gear, it would sometimes randomly do that sound for no reason. Like, that's fabulous. I love it. So I changed to automatic, got my automatic license. But before I did, like I said before, my dad made sure to pick out a car that had a little clock in it. And this was a very important stage of my life because it was an analog clock, the clock face with the little hands on it. It had no numbers on it. It was just, little pegs, the longer ones for the 12, the 3, the 6 and the 9, I believe, and then all the shorter ones for all the other fucking numbers. And so it had no numbers, and it was, just sitting there. And for people who don't know, I have a bit of education issues. It's not like learning difficulties or anything, but I had shitty teachers when I was younger. None of my teachers... How do I explain this? I don't know my times tables, I don't know my Roman numerals, and I've never been able to read the face of an analog clock. So I was basically robbed of that shit since I was a kid. I even remember in grade 2 seeing the tests, they give you, and seeing Roman numerals in front of me, and then the teacher being like, oh, don't worry about that, we didn't teach you that this year. And I was like, oh, okay. Great, because I didn't like Roman numerals, but still, I didn't learn my Roman numerals. Rant over, I guess. We're in my car, vroom vroom, driving home after a night at the club. And I don't mean nightclub, I mean the sailing club, because I'm not a normal teenager, I don't conform to norms. I don't party. But, so we're driving home after dinner at the local sporting club, and I look over to the clock, and I'm like, I wonder what time it is, because I'm a scrub, and I do that a lot, and I look over to it and I read it. It was something like 9:30 p.m. or 10 o'clock or 10:15, or it was something specific. Like it wasn't something obvious, because like, you know, I could read, you know, the o'clock and 30, but it was something specific. It probably was like 9:45 or something, and I read it straight away. Like I look over, 9:45, and I didn't realize until I pulled into my driveway what I just did, which I'd never been able to do before. So that was like a big, you know, woohoo moment. I cried in my car because I was like, holy fuck, I just somehow did that without any prompt to it. But yeah, that was really cool. I've never done that before. I haven't done it since. What the fuck? I've gotten better, but like I haven't done it since. So what the fuck happened? I have been robbed of my own memory. But, so yeah, that was a thing. So that's like a little hint of my education level as well. I've, like, was robbed, basically, of my education. And, like, I remember, grade 2, that's right. I remember grade 2. I think it's syllables or something? Synonyms or syllables? It's one of the synonym words. But it's the one where you're like, you know, how many syllables, I think, is in the word, Cambion, you know, Cambion, that's 3, it's 3 syllables, that's what I mean. I hope I'm saying the right word. I don't have a fucking memory, apparently. And basically, you know, I remember in grade 2, and teacher was like, okay, how many syllables are in the word butterfly? And I put my hand up. She picks me because I never put my hand up anyway, because I don't fucking remember why. But she was like, oh yes, Haley. And I was like, oh, butterfly 3. And she was like, no, fuck off. She didn't say fuck off, but she was like, no, you are wrong. And I'm like, oh, what? Like, okay, butterfly, it's 3, it's 3. And then a kid in my class, he puts up his hand. I will never forget this. She goes, yes, how many do you think there are? And read them out to me. And he's like, oh, butterfly, 6 or 7 or something. And he does that. He goes, butterfly. And she goes, yes, well done. You got that correct. And I'm sitting there like, what the fuck? It's 3. Butterfly. So, that teacher was shit. I'll never forget that. But yeah, that's basically an insight to my education level as well. Fuck. But, yeah, so I went into year 11. I'm trying to not unrail my train here of thought. So back into year 11, it's about halfway through the year, and I'm struggling real bad, real hard. Like, well, one of many reasons was, you know, I was not focusing in class, but I was mainly not focusing in class because 1, friends, and 2, Brooklyn. I think I actually drew on one of my friends' faces just to piss them off because they're like trying to work. I'm one of those kids. I'd poke people with my finger and all that and be like, hey, what you doing? I think I actually had one girl as well who used to liked having her knees touched for some reason, and then she'd cross her legs and her leg would like come over to my side of the table, so I'm like, oh, I'm gonna poke your fucking leg if you don't fuck off. So I was one of those students. But then also I was mainly getting distracted a lot because I was failing and I knew I was failing, and of course having depression and anxiety in one fun ball. It was telling me, you're a failure, kid. You are a failure. And I was like, well, shit, thank you, voice in my head. I am now a failure, therefore I won't try as hard because depression is a bitch. So I then get halfway through the year and the teacher's like, listen, you're struggling real bad. You're struggling harder than ever. And the like year level coordinator comes up and she's like, yeah, you're gonna get real fucked if you don't do anything right. And I'm sitting there, and it's not like a sit down with my parents, it was just with me. And I sat there and I thought about, everything that had happened in my life, right up to this point, and my education level. And because she was like saying things like, you're struggling at English, you're struggling at art, you're struggling at health and human, you're struggling with drama and theatre. And when I look back on my past, I remember I was really good at English, I was really good at art, and I was really good at drama for some fucking reason. I was a drama kid. I don't know what you were expecting from me. Joke's on them, I passed art and one of the drama classes, ha ha ha. I remember my art teacher being like, you're gonna fucking fail. And I'm like, 70%, bitch, top 3 in the class. I don't know, I still don't know how I passed that class being the top 3, but I'll take it. I know who the other top 2 are as well. It was kind of obvious. I think everyone fucking knew. The one who drew bones a lot and the only male in the art class. They're the other top 2. So I think it was one of those 2 and then me. So, and then it was like 2 below. I can't remember. Haley, you have such brilliant memory and you keep derailing. Well, maybe because it's 2 a.m. and I have a poor sleeping schedule. So... So it comes to that meeting, and I sit there and I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, my life was shit. No, I'm just kidding. I was thinking about everything that had happened, like my whole education level, and I decided, well, fuck it, I'm going to tell my teachers my point of view of everything. I told them, the whole butterfly thing, because I will never let that go. Can you blame me? Seriously. That was ridiculous. So I tell my teacher, and I'm like, hey, the butterfly thing, the clock, the timetables, the Roman numeral thing, I'm not shit with times tables. I know my 2s and some of my 4s, but not my 8s or 6s. That's too hard. And my 10s and 5s, they're basic shit. And 1s and 0s. Other than that, I'm fucking useless. And I even said to her, one of the tests involved Roman numerals, and I've never learnt my Roman numerals, and she was like, that's grade 2 stuff. And I'm like, I know. I remember seeing it on a test once, and being told not to worry about it. She looked at me like, oh, well, fuck, okay. And then one of the teachers there was like, well, you can't blame when you're a kid in primary school on your shitty grades, because that's so many years, that's almost 5 to 6 years ago, and you're blaming that. And I turned around and I basically said to her, I also, I told her, I also had a 48% attendance level of year 8, and I basically didn't attend year 9 at all, and then the school decided for some fucking reason that I'd go right into year 10, skipping year 9. And she looked at me and she's like, oh, well, fuck, I didn't know that. She didn't actually say fuck. I'm adding that in there for emphasis, because I can. And she looked at me and it's like, oh, that's unfortunate. We'll see what we can do to help you there. Maybe it would be better if you went into vet or VCAL, to which everyone, for some reason, suspiciously went into VCAL or vet. Not many VCE students stuck around for the second half of VC, or the Victorian Certificate of Education. Oh my god, my throat. And to which, at the time, I thought nothing of it, because I only thought it was going to be me and a few others. But when I look at it now, I hear about all the statistics of how many kids actually dropped down, and it makes me real sus, because then I actually talked to a few people at my old high school and their rate. And while I might include, I might think about, oh, well, individuals, and they might have a different path, but statistical wise, there was so many kids that dropped down, and I compared it to that school, I compared it to a private school, because I didn't have many sources. I compared it to a school that my cousin went to, and it was very poor, very poor. So I have reasons to judge that school, education-wise at least. Like, so many kids dropped down, and I think that's many opportunities missed out. Like, you know, shit happens, I guess. Not everyone has a perfect education. That's fine. But, so I basically tried to do my best at the end of the year, and then they gave me the choice again. They said, listen, it's coming to the end of the year. You have 1 month, then you have exams and everything, and then you're gonna have to pick what you're gonna do next year. At this point, I'm 17. That was actually the first year of me doing YouTube, so that was probably also a distraction, but I was mainly doing that in my free time. You know, it wasn't impeding my work or anything. I was doing that because I was out in public, bored, out of my fucking mind, and I had an iPad, so I was like, yeah, easy travel, easy videos, easy production. I don't fucking know. I didn't know how to add words to that sentence then. But I basically thought about it, and I was like, you know, in my mind, because depression, anxiety is a motherfucker. It's like, you're a failure, you'll never account to anything, you're a failure, as depression does, because depression is a lovely person who is a very nice person and doesn't, like, impede on everything you do. And so I was like, damn, you know, I have a choice here. And the thing was, I forgot to mention this before, by the way, when I was in the meeting to go to this new school back in at the end of 2015, they told me my future and what my plans would be, and my plan was I'd do both 2 years of the Victorian Certificate of Education, so year 11 and 12, and then I'd go straight on to an art university on the complete opposite side of the state to me. I'd live with family and this and that. Well, family friends, I should say. They're not actually family. We have a weird family theory about them being our actually, like being our actual family from many generations ago and having links and all that because last names or whatever. But that's fine. I'm really confused about that in general. But basically, you know, I remember that very distinctly, and then I'm at this point in my life where they're like, well, you can't complete your second year of VCE because you're at a very high rate of failure next year and you're going to be very disappointed. To which I understand. They're probably like, well, we fucked over most of the kids here, so we're going to fuck over you as well. Let you know that we fucked you over. By the way, I'm not saying that to be like, all the blame is on them and not me. I'm not going to accept any blame at all. To which, that's not my intention. I mean, I know some parts I was to blame. I mean, I was being distracted in class a lot, but that's just me being a fucking idiot. But, like, at the end of the day, messing around and whatnot in class, I still got my work done. It was late, but it was done. That's normal. I've never gotten my homework in on time. That's, like, only if it's, like, really important and I'm, like, shitting myself. It's never been in on time, and all my teachers knew that. It's just because I have very poor timing. And so, you know, they were like, you're gonna have to go down to vet. And my family was like, okay, you're going to vet. You're gonna do part-time school, part-time TAFE course. And I'm like, no, I didn't want to do that. I was like, well, no, I was told this was my future. I wanted to do this. Like, I was really dead set on wanting to, you know, go to uni, go to art school, because it was apparently the best of the best or something. And they were like, well, you're not going to be able to do that. You're not going to be able to go to this school that you've been looking forward to for the past 2 to 3 years. You know, because I've known about this school for years. It's in a very nice little country town. I mean, perfect. It's 6 hours away from everyone I know, but it's perfect. I'd make new friends anyway. Fuck my current friends. That's when the pitchforks come in. Oh, God. But yeah, they were like, you know, sorry, we're going to have to do this to you, but you have to pick. It's either continue with your Victorian Certificate of Education, that's VCE, and fail, or go down to vet and go through a different course. And I'm like very heartbroken because it's like, you know, I wanted to be a mangaka artist at this time, to which I still kind of do. I kind of, like, I'm making a comic right about now, again. Some failures happened last time, and I have to refix some and change to a different story, because the other one wouldn't fit a mangaka story by the way I've written it, and I didn't realise that. Oh well. But I was like, well, I want to be a mangaka artist, and this school is the only one that would teach me that type of course. And they're like, well, another easy way to get into that school would be to complete your vet here, then do a course somewhere else, get a job, then attend a course of a lower, different level at that school, do a year or go halfway into that course before using that as a backdoor to get to the course you want. And I did the math, and I would have been about in my early to mid-20s before I would have gotten the course that I wanted. That was doing basic math. And I was like, I'm not waiting that long. That's, you know, at that point in time, it was too much for me. I had so much going on in my life at that point, and I was like, I can't do this. I broke down. I told my dad, I'm like, I can't do this. And he's like, well, if you can't do this, here's what my old man told me when I dropped out. Make a list. Outweigh the pros to the cons. Or see if you can outweigh the cons to the pros or the pros to the cons. And he said, if you can find more cons, leave. If you can find more pros, stay. So I did that. And, you know, he also helped me because, you know, when you're sad, you tend to only think of the sad things. So my dad was like, you know, oh, here's some positives, because I'm guessing he wanted me to also stay in school, so he was trying his best to be like, come on, get her to stay. I was already in that mindset, because, you know, like, once you think of something, you can't get it out of your head. So I think it was all set in the ground, like, you know, I can't do this anymore, I have to leave. And so we ended up finishing the list, and he was like, oh, the cons are outweighing the pros by a fuck ton. And I listed out everything. I'm not going to show the whole list because it was 2 pages long. Like, I'm not doing that. I will if I get paid money, but I'm not doing that. I'm just kidding. I won't accept money for that. That's a waste of money. And so he was like, well, it's your final decision now, you know, got the pros and cons here. And he's basically said to me, you know, if you do leave school, you have to get a job straight away. Like, start searching straight away. And, I mean, that's fine, I kind of understand that. Because, like, it was kind of weird that he said it, like, you know, if you want to leave school, let me know, and you'll have to start searching for work today. And I'm like, oh, okay. But, like, yeah, I decided then and there, you know, I'd leave school to get a job. And so contacted everyone. I let everyone, actually no, I was going to let all of my friends know, but then I had a friend drop out of school, and people started talking shit about them. You know, oh, the typical, like, you know, oh, they drop out, oh, they're so stupid. And I was like, well, you know, they're getting all that attention for dropping out. You know, they're like, this is going to be my last week of school, da-da-da. And I'm like, well, I don't want to be that person to be like, well, I'm also dropping out, fuck you, bye. And so I stayed silent. I didn't tell anyone until they were all returning to school the next year. Like, after summer break, they were all like, you know, oh, we're going back to school. Oh, Haley's, what courses did you take? And I'm like, I didn't take any. Whoops. Oopsie daisies. What's the time? Oh, I believe it's dropout time. But yeah, so I dropped out and got a job after 3 months of fucking searching. Like, I was factory door knocking. Like, I was desperately searching, and they were looking at me like, oh, you're a dropout, are you? It was the first thing they asked, like, oh, so how old are you? And I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm 18, because they were like, what's your education level? What did you complete in your school? And I was like, oh, I did half of my VC and they were like, no, bye, and closed the door on me. And I knocked on many, many factory doors. Like, I was desperate. I went to all sorts of careers except for pornography and slaughterhouses. I would never do those things. That's disgusting. Why the fuck would I do that? And I went door knocking. I believe I applied for over 1,000 jobs in a span of 3 months. 1,000. And I know that sounds like an exaggeration or whatever, but it's, like, honest, I guess, because nobody wanted me. And it was, like, just after Christmas time, so, you know, you get all the people who have just, you know, probably finished school. It was, like, January to March. And they're like, you know, everyone's just left school. You had Christmas leavers as well. And, you know, so there was no positions. People would rather take the person with the course than not the course. And it was horrible. I was struggling. I was low on money. And at that point in time, I also had a car, so I had to pay car insurance and everything, and car registration. I couldn't even let my car become unregistered, and my dad had to even lend me money just to keep my car registered and on the road so I could keep my car, which is fun. I fucking love that so much, you know. Like, you ever, like, think about what you've done in your life and wonder, I could have done it so much more differently if I had done this, or if this hadn't happened in my life, I'd probably have a different life or a different outcome. You know, I never wanted to be a YouTuber. This wasn't planned. I did this because it came out of a hobby and it was just working at the right time. I mean, I'm not doing well, but it's better than fucking nothing, I guess. Fun. But, yeah, I have heard people commenting on the fact that I am a dropout on Discord, like, oh, I want to drop out just like you, to which, you know, it's a joke, so I laugh along with it, but on the inside I'm like, oh, please don't actually be serious. It is not all that it's out to be, dropping out. It is honestly a fucking nightmare. The amount of people I've had to do interviews for, like, a lot of the time when I did interviews, I'd get ready, you know, I'd dress to impress, I'd wear a suit and everything, and I'd go in knowing that they're going to say no to me. And I reckon that's the hardest thing, going in knowing for a fact that you take one look at the person that's going to interview you and go, yep, they already don't like me, I'm wasting my time. And being right, like, it's not like I'm going in going, right, well, I'm going to fuck this up anyway, so I might as well leave. Like, no, I was actually trying my hardest because I didn't want to waste my time there, even though I know I was. And they were like, no, sorry, we'll rather take the one with the course and the experience required. And I'm like, well, that fucking sucks, you know? Well, but what can you do about it, you know? You can't really do much, unfortunately. So all I really have to say out there for people who are dropouts, keep trying, keep searching, do courses, get jobs. I can't really suggest much, but for people who want to drop out, like, it's all fine and dandy, you know, when you're in school and like, I want to drop out, ha ha ha, you know, it's all fine and dandy, but one day you realize that time will catch up on you, and time is scarily quick. It is scarily quick. And one day you'll be sitting there having the time of your life with your friends. Next minute you'll be hungry constantly. You'll be wondering, what could I have done to prevent this? You'll be in a constant circle of blaming others or yourself or both. You'll be in the constant stage of, like, failure, because there'll always be someone to one-up you since you're a dropout with a lack of experience. That's why I always encourage, you know, when you're young, get a job. When you're young, get a job. Because one of the other things that made it hard for me to get a job was because I had no previous work experience. All I did was school, to which like, you know, I told my interviewers, why haven't you gotten a job before? And I was like, oh, well, I was that devoted to my studies, I felt like education is the most important thing, so I just wanted to put myself 100% into my education and then worry about work later on, as I wanted to make sure my education was up there, which was a fucking lie. But to an interviewer, they're not gonna know. An interviewer, you just gotta impress, as long as you're not telling blatant lies like, I speak Spanish, like, I know Trump. Like, they're not gonna, like, notice if it's like a minor thing, such as, I just was devoting myself, You'll learn as, you go for work. But I ended up getting a job with family members, and I'm struggling to keep that because of my education level. Like, my work requires a lot of math. I don't think people realise how important math is. Holy shit. The amount of times I had to pull out my phone for a calculator, and then my boss going, no, put that phone back in the phone box and lock it back in the drawer. I'm like, no, please, I need the calculator. But yeah, don't drop out. If you can prevent it, don't do it. And if you have a little demon in your head that's telling you to drop out because you're a failure, don't listen to it. Do not listen to that demon. Because that demon can fuck you up. And what that demon does is it makes something seem better. It makes it seem like a better outcome. My demon told me, you're a failure, you're not going to achieve anything, drop out and just get straight to work. Everyone's got to work at some stage. What can one course do that working can't? You're still going to be hungry and you're still going to need a job. And I didn't realise that my demon ended up making me create more of that failure thought, because, I was getting no's in all my interviews and a lot of emails. I didn't even get a email back telling me no at times. Sometimes I was just blatantly ignored, and that's not fun either, because then like, oh, see, they're ignoring you because they don't like you, thanks, inner demons. But yeah, it's not fun at all. Not fun in the slightest. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this story time. It became a lot longer. I'm going to try and edit this down so it's not like 3 million years, I guess. But yeah,